My name is Lori Power. I'm a group benefit consultant, and I really thank you for taking the time to come in today to engage in conversation. This is my favorite part of the week. And what makes it my favorite time of the week is a purposeful engagement with everybody here, having intentional conversations on topics and bringing somebody in who is that mastermind, who's boots on the ground, making things happen. Natasha has been in the room so many times, I'll call on her, but what makes her so unique compared to the rest of us here in the room that are here right now is we are practitioners on the outside. We are practitioners that stand there and say, you know what, thanks for working with us. Thanks for doing this. This is how we think this is going to work in your business. This is across the board how we've seen these things work. But Natasha is in the throes of it. She leads a team. She is a people leader. And I really want to get to the heart of what is that transition actually looking like? Somebody who is in the trenches. If you take a moment to introduce yourself, a bit of your background and how you work with Park Insurance.
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be back on the show today and see some familiar faces. I always love being here and chatting with Lori, and our next 31 minutes is going to go by way too fast. So I am the Chief Culture Officer at Park Insurance in Burnaby, BC, and I've been here for a little over 3 years. And my role is anything and everything to do with our wonderful and amazing employees. So I'm tasked with ensuring that all the decisions and changes we make within our organization fall in line with our values and are observing of the employee, and that they have the highest engagement and satisfaction that they can have. I'm proud to say we currently yield a 92% satisfaction rate with our employees. And I think I have the easiest and best job in the world, because I just make sure I take care of 40 people really well, and in turn they take care of thousands of clients for us really well. So that's me and my role in a nutshell.
And that's really what we want to share out to as a choir to our clients that we serve, is your job becomes easier when your employees are happy and the clients are therefore happy. And how they become the mouthpiece, they become the vocal side of things to say why or how is it to work at Park Insurance. But that didn't happen overnight.
No, absolutely.
What did it look like when you first came into Park Insurance?
Well, I was really lucky. I already walked into a company that had already really embraced cultural evolution a few years before. And so I took over their initiatives that they were already doing, did sort of, a 360 review of what was working and what wasn't working, and then continued on what was working really well. And then just started hitting the ground running with more ideas of what I thought we could do to grow and improve on that. So, we were already, I think our satisfaction rate was somewhere in the 80s when we started. So it's definitely grown since I've been here. We've implemented a ton of new initiatives, a bunch of programs. And then we got hit with the pandemic. So then everything got turned really upside down, right? And a large part of what we're here to talk about today. So when the pandemic happened, we decided in a leadership meeting at 12:32 on March 13th, 2020, that we were going to send everyone to work from home, because we didn't know what was going on and we were all scared and terrified. We have 3 locations. 2 of them, though, are retail locations that service auto plan clients or auto insurance. We're in BC, we have compulsory government insurance. And so we couldn't send those employees to work from home, but we did lock our doors to walk-in clients. And so that looked a little bit different. But our head office, which makes up our leadership team, our administrative and support team, a full personal lines department and a full commercial lines department, it's about 20 to 25 people, depending on what time of year it is. And so we deployed all of those people to work from home. So everyone worked remotely from home. Some of our managers who worked in the retail locations, they were also working from home. And then And it was working great. Was productivity high? Absolutely, right? Was everyone performing? Absolutely. Were our employees happy? Absolutely. I mean, Lori knows and can attest, I could talk for hours about all the things that I pivoted from doing in person to doing online. We did happy hours every Friday. We did our annual parties online where we had a Mexican fiesta with a live DJ. We had a chef come on, teach us how to make ceviche. We had a mixologist come on, teach us how to make margaritas. We partied and danced the night away. We did prizes, we've done awards, we've done lunch roulette, we've done water cooler meetings, we've done onboarding online, like everything we possibly could do. We did a paint night online, like we did tons of stuff online. But what I was starting to see, and we had really great communication. And one thing I should preface is that we do quarterly employment engagement surveys where we ask our employees a number of questions about how they're doing and how things are going in our organization. So a large part of my job is digesting that information and that data and making recommendations to the leadership team about changes we should make in terms of the feedback that we're getting from the employees, which is an anonymous survey. And so what I was starting to see and the reports that I was starting to read, which I felt really correlated strongly with what I was seeing, was that productivity was high and connection with employees in a team was incredibly high. But connection between different teams in different departments, so cross teams and cross departments, was low. And that made sense because there's no reason, and Tracy can attest to this, a lot of times there's, not much reason why personal lines department needs to deal with commercial lines department or the audit plan department. So the leadership department got to be involved in a lot of stuff, but we had sort of what I was seeing, this, not a divide, but there was just no, other than, the happy hours on Fridays that we were doing or the biannual parties, I was noticing what we were missing was those organic, serendipitous conversations that happen in the kitchen, at the water cooler, right? And I strongly, truly believe that, is there advantages to working from home? Absolutely. But is there a ton of advantages for people to be working in the office and connecting with each other and having these conversations? I think that it triggers a ton of innovative ideas and a really healthy emotional mindset by being able to speak to people in person. So, I think that some things just can't be replicated virtually. And so we decided for our company, it was best to transition into a hybrid work model.
So it sounds to me that you had inadvertently, or the situation had created inadvertent silos, the unintentional aftermath of doing the intentional action.
Yeah.
So, and people within those silos, I'm just guessing here, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they get pretty dug in. I know I'm one of those people that can get really dug into an idea, and and I force myself to empty the cup, if you would, and learn and be open to it. But if you had a few of me on your different silos, I'd get all dug in, and I'd be like, listen, it's 2.5 years in. Where are you coming from right now? And I'm really curious to how you managed that transition. And then now, and then what I want to take it to is, what does it look like now that you are in that hybrid?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because even just making that decision to go hybrid, we have seen so many employers go, it is the way it is, with no discussion.
Yeah. So I think that starting from day one, we always talked about that. I mean, we told our employees we're all going to work remotely from home. I think like the rest of the world, it's just going to be 2 weeks. And it was a very long 2 weeks that ended up being 2 years long, right? But I think we always constantly were talking about the possibility of coming back to the office, or in the future, what that would look like. So we never said that we would ever be 100% remote working company. And I think that what we always advertised is that we have a really strong culture, that we noticed and recognized that there was advantages to working from home. The productivity was higher, obviously, on those days because there's less distractions and less socializing and communication. Employees were happier because they didn't have to have that commute into work. You could just roll out of bed and roll into your desk, so there was that flexibility component of it, but that our business over the past 50 plus years had been built on working together and being able to share ideas and problem solve and brainstorm and having that socialization aspect. And that we felt that it was a really strong component of our identity at Park Insurance. And so what we started to do was quite soon, the first time the pandemic started to slow down, I think like last summer, we started surveying our employees about like, if we were to return to work, what would it look like for you? What are some of your worries, right? And some of the things that our staff were saying was that, about barriers, about masks, about distancing. And so we surveyed them many times over many months about what made them comfortable and what made them uncomfortable. And we were starting to transition them to come back to the office, and then the world shut down again. So then we just shut down all of our plans again. And then we were able to successfully start to bring everyone back onto a hybrid working schedule last September. It also included me having one-on-one conversations with every single employee that was coming back to the office. So then we gave them an option that they could either come back to the office and work at the office full time, or they could be on our hybrid working model where they were in the office 50% of the time and then they were at home half of the time. So the people that wanted to be here in the office full time, they're here at the office full time. And then those ones that were on hybrid work models, we just put them on a temporary hybrid working model agreement with our company. And there's a lot of things, and Lisa can attest to this. I mean, we could go into it for a long time, but I mean, working from home, you start to get into worker compensation things. There are certain things you need to make sure, like, liability wise, like if someone trips over their cat, like, and breaks their arm, like, are you liable for that? So it's, it starts to get into, it's a lot more than just saying, oh, you can work from home 50% of the time. So, yeah, so we've started to bring everyone back, and some people were really excited and some people were really nervous about it. But I think that we just, like I always said, communication, right? And so when my employees that were nervous and had reservations about it, I made note of those employees and I made sure that I doubled down on my communication with them and checked in with them more often than not, right? And I always go by a rule of thumb that when I feel like I'm communicating too much, I'm probably communicating just enough.
Very good. I like that. I really like that. I had said recently with regards to a benefit program, those that complain about the cost of a benefit program coming off of their paycheck are probably those that need it the most, right? Because if that's a problem for them, they've likely not done anything individually. A personal peeve of mine that I see, whether it's applicable to surveys that I receive or surveys that I see people doing, and now I already know that you do it well, is when people survey, but there's no action taken. And then that is just such a waste and an erosion of that cultural element. Before you're putting out a survey, if you can, I'm really curious as to the prep of what your planned action, right? Like Patty will say, a lawyer never asks a question that they don't know the answer to. So when you're doing that survey, how do you plan out what your action is going to be based on what the planned feedback will be?
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing it so long, it's almost sort of a little bit of a habitual thing for me now. So we get the surveys back, I digest all the information, and let's be clear, like, I mean, I'm really lucky because at a 92% satisfaction rate, the margin of things that are problems are very small and minimum. So I, very lucky in compared to when I first started, where we are identifying large problems. But what I would do is I would divide out the survey based on the department. So I'd look at it a whole and then divide it out based on department and based on team. And then I would make essentially, I call them these, but I don't really like calling them. I make report cards for each individual department manager. I would highlight the areas of success from the survey, and then I would highlight the areas of concerns from the survey. And then I would talk about some areas that I thought that we could do in order to make those improvements. And then I would have a one-on-one with the manager, and I would coach them and mentor them on how to make those changes. And then we would implement those changes. And then what I would do is the next survey, I surveyed them on those issues that they had, and then pull from my library some more questions to then start digging into a different area. But I agree with you that a lot of times, yeah, people do surveys and then it falls on deaf ears, right? Which is super frustrating. We make sure that we communicate our survey results. We make sure we communicate some highs and some lows and what the changes are going to be. And I think our staff are just so used to it that we've been doing this for years now that they know that it's a rotational thing, but it's a huge, huge component of it. Like, I don't advocate for people. I've talked to some people before who said, oh, well, I want to do engagement surveys too. And I said, do not do it unless you are promising 110% you're going to commit to making changes based on what you get in feedback wise. So
You've nailed everything that you've taught me over our months of our years of knowing one another now. Because it's not been months, it's been a long time.
Been a long time, yes.
Yeah, and time does fly when you're having fun. But I think that is critical, right? Like, for me personally, if somebody sends me a survey, but they have no action afterward, they give me no feedback, I'm not likely to do the second survey. And then what is bothersome is they might need that information, right? It might make my life better, but they're not communicating. It's not becoming a two-way street.
Yeah.
Now, if you're willing to share, I really love the way that you have scheduled out the hybrid side of things. And I really liked the methodology behind that, on what it meant. Can you share that out with?
Absolutely. So our schedule is 50-50. So 50% of the time you're expected to be in the office and 50% of the time you're expected to be at home. We have always advocated for having a large flexibility and allowing our staff to have some autonomy, but I also felt like if we let them pick and decide, it would sort of be too much of a free-for-all. And so while I'm a huge advocate for flexibility, I'm also kind of like, there also needs to be some structure. There needs to be like a box with grade lines around it, right? And so what we did, and it's funny because telling Lori, I kind of actually modeled it around my schedule that I have of my son with my ex-husband, and our schedule goes from Wednesday until Tuesday. And I did this because people love working from home because of the flexibility, right? You don't have to commute, you don't have to do your hair and your makeup, you can roll out of bed at 5 to 9 and be at your desk at 9 o'clock. You can maybe run the dishwasher or the laundry machine on your lunch break or something of that nature, right? But then you have to get to the office sometimes and do the grind, but that's also lovely too. So our schedule goes from Wednesday until Tuesday. So that means that every single week, everyone has a couple days at home where they have that flexibility, and then a couple days at the office where they have the grind. And then it doesn't feel like 1 week you have flexibility and then 1 week is the grind. It sort of breaks it up. It's really nice. So for instance, just because sometimes it's hard for people to visualize in their head. So this week on Monday and Tuesday, I was working from home. And then on Wednesday was my week to come into the office. So I'm here Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. I go home for the weekend. I come back on Monday and Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, I work from home. So then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, I'm at home. And then it just keeps switching. What I did,
a midweek break.
Yes.
You don't have to be getting up on a Monday morning and go, oh, I'm in the office this week. That is just that's a people killer.
It's been amazing. And what I did was, because I didn't want to, when we first started, because I think that when we do big changes, right, big steps seem really scary. And so when we did this return, I said, we're going to do it on a trial. It's going to be a 3-month trial, and let's see. And I want feedback. Tell me what's working, what's not working. And so I created a schedule and I divided the staff half and half. I broke them up. And I did it at first based on distancing in the office, because that was still an issue and concern. And Lori asked me to remind you about circling back to wristbands. And so we did a 3-month schedule. So everyone knew September, October, November, so you could plan in advance. And I had week A group and then week B group. And then there was a published schedule, and then everyone just kind of came and went as they needed to based on the schedule. And then when that quarter ended, I did a new schedule for the next 3 months, but I switched it up and shuffled the people around. So then they got to interact and see different people from different departments and different groups, which is really beneficial. And then at the end of that 3 months, I did it again. So we're now on our, I think our 3rd or 4th cycle. So it's been 9 months. So it's coming September will have been a year on it. And so it's really super great. If someone's not feeling well, instead of coming to the office, they just then have the ability to work from home, which is great. Yeah, and it's been working out really well from us. And then the wristbands. So what we started doing, and Lori knows I shared this with her when we first started coming back, because there was still the masks and the vaccines and the barriers, and some people were very trepid about certain things. I got wristbands for everyone. I just ordered them. I put them in the front of the office with a big sign, and green wristband. If you wore a green wristband, meant that you felt comfortable, you were fully vaccinated, and you were welcome and open to high fives. Yellow meant that you were still a little bit trepid and that, you could talk to someone at 6 feet away. And red felt that you were really uncomfortable and you wanted to keep your distance, right? And so it was interesting because you didn't have to vocalize to someone how you were feeling on any given day about distancing and talking and proximity. And so everyone just wore those wristbands for probably about 4 or 5 months, right? Until like the restrictions started to loosen. And it was just nice because it was a visual of like, hey, today this person is like feeling like, yeah, I can give them a high five and they're okay with it. But maybe in the next week, something happened in the news that created some sort of fear in them, and they could wear a yellow or a red one, and everyone just knew to stay away from their cubicle, and they didn't have to have a conversation about it with anyone. So yeah,
last week we had the discussion about the 10-80-10, right? And a deeper dive into that. And I agree, Lisa, that pandemic or not, it's a good thing to do because it is a communicator and it's another form of communicating. Some unexpected responses that you may have come across that, all the best laid plans aside, right? Sometimes the most, lovely people go, did that just happen?
Yeah, I think you're talking about some of the challenges that we've had, right? So, I mean, we haven't had too many, but I think that, we wanted, after the first few months, once the restrictions started to end and everyone started to feel comfortable, and we knew that this is what we were going to be doing and what we were going to be sticking with. Again, we communicated that to the staff and said, this is what we're doing, right? And so the expectation now, though, is that unless you're feeling unwell, you are in the office on your work days and you're at home but if you want to be in the office more, you can, right? But the days you're expected to be in the office, you are, and I hated prefacing it this way, but it was that if you were not in the office enough when you should be, other than being sick, it would be a performance conversation with your manager. And what we started to see was that in our flexibility and kindness, we started to see some people who were, I don't want to say taking advantage, but maybe taking advantage of the fact that they could work from home, right? So yes, if you're sick, I don't want you coming here. If you think you're sick, I don't want you coming here. If you have someone in your family who has COVID, please do not come here. Those are all things that I'm fine with you working from home. What I'm not okay with you working from home, though, just because you have the ability, is you went snowboarding yesterday and your body is sore. You broke up with your boyfriend last night and you're not in a good mood, so you're not going to come to the office, right? Or I couldn't find my keys this morning, and so I'm not going to make it into the office today. I'm just going to work from home. So those were, just a couple examples. And so we nipped it in the bud quite quickly, right? We had one-on-one conversations with those employees, and then we sent out, you know, sort of a mass email just being like, we just want to reiterate that these are the only reasons when you're working in the office, expected to be in the office, that it's okay for you to not be here. You know, otherwise, you know, it is incredibly important to us for you to be in the office. Here is why, right? So just because you have the flexibility and availability to work from home, we still expect in pre-pandemic, if you broke up with your boyfriend, you would either call in sick, which is an option if that's what you want to do. You have 10 sick days a year. So if you really feel like you need a mental health day, then you take that, right? Or again, if you went snowboarding and your body is sore, then you're taking a sick day, right? But we just felt like it was a little bit bending our flexibility a little bit too much. So we kind of nipped that in the bud, and it's been okay since. Yeah.
I use the BC 19 as a time marker, right? It's not BC before Christ. It's like before COVID-19,
yes,
right?
Yes.
What does life look like? Cute. Nobody wants to be the police officer, but at the same time, I think if people have come to work wherever they're working, knowing that there are boundaries and there are expectations, and not to take that flexibility, I think is what you're saying, not to take that flexibility and great place to work as though you actually don't have an accountability to be there. I think that's part of that messaging on great culture, is holding your people accountable for why they work with you.
Yeah.
If you had to narrow it down, what would be your top 3 recommendations or advice that we can share out as the choir, right? That we can share out as the choir and say, you know what, these are my top 3 things that work over and over again to build that top level client culture within the organization, that have allowed us to have that retention on our staff. What would be your top 3?
Okay, I'm going to give you my top 3 for free, but then next time I'm going to charge you for it. I'm kidding. Can we talk about that, what I'm doing in September?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay, so we'll segue.
That's my segue into that.
Was that your segue into it? I got it. I feel like you're throwing down. Perfect. Okay, so my number 1 is obviously the engagement surveys, but it has to be prefaced with, you have to be committed to actually making changes, and based on what your people say. And I will say, I was talking to a gentleman the other day, like, he's scared because he feels like his culture is really, really bad. And so he's worried it's going to be too much, right? And I said, again, so that leads into number 2, communication, hugely important. You can tell your employees, I heard this, there's a lot to go on, right? Like, I can hear you, I hear you, I see you, I understand you, I have a lot of work. If I could wave a magic wand and fix everything overnight, I would, but I can't. So I'm going to pick 3 things, and I'm going to commit to the next 6 months working really hard on those top 3 things, right? Give me time, give me space, give me grace. I will work on this, right? So if you can commit to that, do the engagement surveys. The number 2 tip is communication. Again, communication, talking, speaking, writing, video, bulletins, newsletters, anything and everything. And just I go by the rule of thumb that when you feel like you're communicating too much, you're probably communicating just enough, right? And sometimes my staff joke with me that they're like, oh, my inbox, I went on vacation and I came back and it's just full of emails from Natasha, right? So, but no one can ever complain to me that they weren't kept in the loop about what was going on, right? So I'll take that as a win, and I take their little dig. And then I would say my third one, I'm going to go with the fun stuff. I think the fun stuff really counts and it really matters. And it doesn't need to be big stuff. I think the little stuff can add up, and you can do a lot of fun stuff. We have a very healthy budget, and I'm really blessed for that. But I also do a ton of stuff that's really economical. that is fun, it's engaging, it's team building. I mean, we do, for instance, quarterly challenges, right? So we just finished a 12-week step challenge. So all of our staff were invited. Everyone got an app on their phone. It cost me $2 per user. And we competed in a step challenge, and it encouraged everyone to lace up and get out there. Everyone gets a 20-minute walking break a day anyways, and compete. And we saw the leaderboard, and there's a chat box so people could dig on people if they needed to or wanted to. It was really fun. I had a couple push challenges, and then a winner at the end of the 12 weeks was declared, and she got this massive gift basket that was presented to her, and we take photos and then we put it on social media, right? That cost me, like, maybe all in all with the gift basket, less than $300, right? But what did that do for 12 weeks, creating a team environment and something that wasn't work related, that was also mentally and physically well for them? Like, it's just, little things like that, right? The fun stuff, I think it really matters, really adds up.
So that's my segue to you.
That's
so
my segue
the
to
evolution of Natasha's brain and the sharing and commitment of it.
Yes. So I am going to hopefully be launching in September a culture boot camp workshop. It's going to be a 6-week series, once a week for 2 hours. And I am going to be hosting a workshop for small business owners, people, manager, leaders, anyone who's interested, about how to grow and build a engaging, empowering, and positive culture within your organization. It's geared to all size businesses, but really I feel very passionately about smaller organizations who maybe don't have the resources to have someone like me, but identify that culture is incredibly important in their organization and they want to do something, but just don't know where to start. And I do a lot of networking with the Burnaby Board of Trade and several other, insurance industry activities here in Burnaby and in BC. And I get asked so many times exactly what Lori just asked, like, how can I do what you do, right? And so I think spending 10, 15 minutes, half an hour, an hour with someone sometimes is just not enough. And so I've created this boot camp and I'm pretty excited about it and a little bit scared, but so follow me on LinkedIn and hopefully I will be launching those exact dates sometime in the early summer. And hopefully we'll see some of you there, or you can recommend it to someone who you think might take advantage of it, right? So yes,
I just think it's a great opener. Selfishly, I think it's a great opener, and I will be there because if I can get a couple of clients in the door to take that kind of boot camp, and they're hearing it from boots on the ground, working, it just makes my life a lot easier. It makes having those conversations so much easier. And really, at the end of the day, that's why we're all gathered here together, is because we're sharing this information so that we can all grow. If we grow, our clients grow, and then success just happens. Like, I love that. That's, gets me all pumped up and hyper.
Yes, me too. I know, I get so jazzed up about it. I'm such a dork. I'm like, I just love culture. I feel like I have a bit of a secret sauce and I feel really selfish if I held on to it, right? And I just want to share it with everyone. And I feel like I used to work in, toxic, gross work environments. And I just feel like we spend such a large portion of our lives at work. And I don't understand why we can't just enjoy going to work and have, I'm a huge advocate for it being a mutually beneficial relationship, and not everyone sees that or knows how to do that. And so I just want to try and share a little bit of what I've learned along the way in my careers. And there you be.
Well, smiles are free, and a giggle doesn't cost that much, really.
No, exactly.
But it is, I strongly, strongly recommend all of us reach out. If this is your first time engaging with Natasha, she's wonderful to have a virtual Zoom and coffee with. I don't know if we actually drink coffee or we just get into it and get
into it. Yeah. Gab away. Absolutely. More than happy to chat. Yes.
Yeah. As always, the best time of the week. Thank you, everybody, for coming in. Don't forget that in 2 weeks' time, we're having book shift with Connie. We are going to be rocking that book launch and really getting into, what did it take, that intentional drive to write that book, stay on schedule. I mean, those who know Connie, it took a lot of dedication to meet the markers to get that book out. And I really, really want to celebrate that. So if you're not already registered, listen, come on in, let's have a party about it.